Fools. Welcome back to another Formula Fools podcast. I'm David, your guide through the twists and turns, and with me is Skin. Didn't write another thing for you again.
It's all right.
We've been busy.
Yeah, just flat out for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm Skin.
Hello, that's Skin. From pit lane antics to racing riddles, we're here to make you laugh and question your sanity. Sit back, buckle up. It is time for Formula Fools.
What a noise.
What a noise. What a sound it is.
Really gets me excited, that stuff.
Easy, Skin. So yeah, we've got 3 races to catch up on this week. The Vegas race, the Qatar race, and the Abu Dhabi race, which concludes the season for us. And then we'll do a little season review at the end.
Sweet.
So stay tuned, everyone. Vegas race. What did you think to the Vegas race? This was the first one you ever watched live last year.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you reckon this year?
Didn't watch it.
Go Skin. How were the highlights?
Highlights looked wonderful. Yeah, I don't know. I like the Vegas race.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's good. It was certainly the first time. It was the first race I ever watched, and I really enjoyed it enough to watch more races after that, I suppose. So,
yeah, and start a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
That we're
nice.
on schedule with.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of them that a lot of people don't like, but I think we've had 2 years where it's been decent racing, so yeah, it's all right in my book.
You know what I do like about the Vegas race, and I don't understand this. What it's in America,
yeah,
but they do it at night, so it ends up being at a reasonable time for Australians, and Americans. Mm-hmm. It just seems nice.
Yep.
Why do so many other races not just do that? And we have to watch them at fucking 1 a.m, or just not watch them.
Because they try and stay as close to a good European schedule as possible, because that's where the biggest fan base is for the F1. So a lot of Vegas locals complain that they've got to stay up till like midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever time it is local time there to watch the race.
Oh, is it quite late?
It's late for them there, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Just so they can keep on a European schedule. But I think that's also either later in the day for the European schedule or earlier in the day. I can't remember which way it flies. But it ends up being perfect for us because it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's one of the best ones of the year for us. Yeah, I don't know. They need to cater for Australia more.
I know.
Yeah.
All 20 million of us.
Yeah. I mean, Formula Fools, we're going to capture all 20 million of them pretty soon. So, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Go
Anyways,
Dudes.
how was the race? The actual racing seemed fine.
Yeah, racing was pretty, it was fine. Like it was all right. Qualifying was great. Hamilton only qualifying in P10, which was fantastic. There's any Lewis fans, this episode is not for you. Just throw that one out there. You'll see. We'll get. I've got some audio grabs. You'll see. But yeah, after qualifying, he was complaining quite a lot about the pace he had in the car. I don't know if it was that they didn't get the setup right or whatever, but George qualified in like P3 or 4 or something like that. So he was just like quite concerned that his side of the garage or like his car or him, they couldn't get it right and he qualified lower down.
Right.
Yeah.
But then he ended up
finishing like 3rd.
Yeah, weren't they? I thought, yeah, they were both on the podium, weren't they?
Yeah, podium. Both of them podiumed. I think George was P2 and he was, or did George win this one? Can't remember who won this one. And then, yeah, Hamilton was in P3 or P2.
Okay. That doesn't sound like there's a lot to complain about.
Great race car. Yeah, great race car. It's just 1 lap pace that he was just complaining about. It almost felt like a bit of, like he was questioning, like, how are we this far away from the other car? Like, how did he put a lap time in that was that much slower? Which usually indicates you're getting old and you don't have the...
right, okay.
No, but in all fairness, like Fernando, Kimi Räikkönen, and Sebastian Vettel, like when they started losing to their teammates this dramatically, maybe not this dramatically, but like when they started losing to their teammates, you get in your head about and you start to question whether it is you or not. I'm not saying it is that, but Lewis must have been questioning it. There was a lot of like radio messages during that qualifying, like post-qualifying and things, and then media interviews where he sounded quite defeated with his own performance. I think he was blaming the car and the team a lot less than himself, which is good, which is great. I hate it when people blame the team or the car. I like it when people take responsibility and say, I fucked up. And that's what he did. But I was pissing myself. It was great. And then in the race, I wanted to cry because he did a good job. And I had to say he did a good job and compliment him.
You poor bastard.
Yeah, because he lives for my compliments.
Yeah, of course. That does sound concerning for old Ferrari, though, who have him next year if he's suddenly starting to question if he's too old. That's not great.
Oh, well, we'll get onto that in a little bit, Skin, because there's a lot more coming with the Lewis Hamilton saga. Let's just say that one.
All right, okay.
Pierre Gasly is a absolute fucking guru towards the end of this season. We mentioned in the last one that Alpine got a double podium. They got quite lucky, but Gasly was very quick during that race and the qualifying session and things like that. And Vegas is no exception to that.
Mm-hmm.
Gasly dominated.
Qualifying.
And the race, like he did pretty well in the race as well. Held his own against the top 4 teams.
Right.
I mean,
he ended up.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, for the first like 8 laps, 7 or 8 laps, and then the car blew up. Yes,
okay, yes, the old car blowing up.
But I'm just like reviewing of like how good he was doing. He wasn't just like being swallowed up within the first 2 laps.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Like,
what ended up? Do you know what happened with his car? Why did cars just blow up?
This late on in the season, especially for smaller teams that probably don't want to put like Ferrari exceeded a battery limit on Leclerc's car for this season, meaning they used 1 battery over their allocation. So I think you're allowed 4 for the season for the batteries. Each part of the power unit, you're allowed specific amounts of the power unit. So like the MGUK, the MGUH, the actual like combustion engine, the battery, and things like that. You're allowed to use so many during one season. And I think for a team like this that are on the lower end of the budget, or, you know, things are a little bit tight, like they've had crashes, not had the best races, they probably didn't want to put a new engine in. And so it's just old components, just shit the bed, basically. Apparently it was so severe though that it blew a hole in the side of his car, the engine let go. So that would indicate to me like either a turbo has gone and there was smoke coming out, like a puff of white smoke, which could have been a turbo like just exploding. And then we got the white smoke and then it went and then he pulled in the pits. Or it could have been like a piston going or something else internally on the engine that just kind of shot out the side of it and just, blew a hole in the side of it.
Okay.
Which isn't great, but we see it fairly regular especially like 24 races in a season is a hell of a lot of mileage to do in an F1 car. So, it's just an old engine.
Okay.
So yeah, that was great for him. I also wrote down Carlos going into the pits and then bailing last minute was pretty bizarre.
That was.
Yeah.
What happened?
So he was going to go into the pits and then he bailed.
And he just didn't go into the pits. Did he actually get into the pits, or he just, how far did he get?
Well, the way I see it is he crossed there's like 2 pit entry lines. There's one with the pit lane speed limiter, which is a bit later on, right before you're in the actual pit lane. And then there's like the pit entry line. And in my opinion, he crossed the pit entry line and shouldn't have then gone over it. Ferrari basically called him in and then very last minute said, stay out, we're not ready for you. And he was already committed to it. And he was like, what the fuck, guys? Like, why did you do that? I was halfway in. I'm confused though, because we've seen Hamilton, I think it was like 2018 or 19 or something, in Germany did the same thing and got penalized for it. And like, we've seen it time and time again. And I don't understand why he got penalized. He didn't get penalized for it.
Yeah, well, I don't know a heap about Formula One, but that seems like the type of thing that should be a penalty. Like that, it looked rather dangerous. From
like Lewis's point of view, because Lewis was like following him in the pits. Yeah, it's very dangerous because like all of a sudden Lewis is following this guy and then he's just like, I understand if he locked up or whatever, but he didn't. He just carried on going on the track.
Yeah, quite bizarre. And then so would he have lost? So obviously it's dangerous, which is not great. But did it? It also sucks for Ferrari. Like he would have lost some time doing that, surely.
Yeah. Well, so when a driver is coming into the pits, they'll be told by the team on the previous lap, like box, that driver will just push like crazy for that last half lap or full lap or whatever to just destroy the rest of the tires, get as much time out of them as possible. So he could have had like a full lap or a half lap there where he was pushing them tires hard. And then he did that. That would have lost him time. But then his following lap, he would have probably lost more time because his tires would have had a peak of like a spike of heat, or he would have just used the last of the rubber that was, good and fresh and everything. And he would have potentially lost time on the next lap. And then the pit stop was also not that fast. So yeah, it was not good from Ferrari.
Okay.
Which is great for Lewis Hamilton next season because he's going to be there and he's going to have them shit decisions to deal with. And it's just known that Ferrari do that. And I can't wait to see how Lewis just crumbles because they destroy his soul with this.
Okay. Very good.
Like I said, Lewis Hamilton fans, switch off now. I mean, please don't keep our attention rate up, but switch off. So yeah, that hummed for them. Perez had the only good thing I think he's done this entire season, and that was a double overtake on lap 38. I think it was on Lawson and someone else, can't remember who it was, but it was a guru overtake, like around the outside into a tight corner, really tight apex, squeezed him, and I think it might have been K-Mag or something. And yeah, it was an amazing move, and it was the only good thing he's done this season.
That seems a bit stretchy. I'm pretty sure he came second in some early races. He was good for a few weeks.
The first 5 races of the season, Red Bull had by far the fastest car. Like if he wasn't coming second, it would be a worry. Like Max was winning by like 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And then what? So since it's been competitive, he sucked a bit.
He's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
George had a good race. It was George that won in this one. I completely forgot, and then I've just read my notes. George did win in this one. He had a good race. He looked fairly solid. Mercedes looked solid for a race pace during this one, which everyone expected anyway, because cooler temperatures, the Mercedes tends to perform better in the cooler temperatures for some reason. Handles the tires better. The car just performs better. Things like that. And George was just very measured in his race win. I will just say though, George is slowly getting on my fucking nerves and is becoming a right little Lewis Hamilton. And I will also say there's a fucking lot of people online that agree with that statement.
Okay.
Have you heard about the Max George drama off track?
I haven't.
So I think it was for this race. Max had qualified on pole, or it might have been for Qatar. I can't remember what race it was. Max had qualified on pole. George complained that he didn't get out the way on his cooldown lap for George, who I don't think was on a fast lap either. And he wasn't sticking to his delta or something. And then some shit went down in the steward's room. Max was handed a 1-place grid penalty before the race, which I've never heard of. And then George came out and said he's a bully and he lied in the steward's room and he was effing and jeffing and doing all this and blah, blah, which Red Bull have denied and said we had representatives there. Like none of that happened. George has then said that Max said he was going to crash into him and put him on his head, was the quote George used. And it got very heated between these last 3 races, between the two of them. And
I actually do remember reading something.
Schoolyard shit, honestly.
Okay.
Anyway, but Max is a 4-time world champion after this race. So go Max.
Yeah, that was good. That was exciting. So he finished like 6th or something, but was just far enough ahead of Norris to guarantee there was no chance anyone was going to overtake him.
I think he needed to outscore Norris by 3 or more points to then win the championship, and Norris needed to just be within them like 2 or more to keep it alive, basically, like mathematically alive.
Okay. And then once it's mathematically dead, they just like
crown the champion.
Crown the champion there and then.
It's like he could genuinely have just sat the last 2 races out, and even if Lando had won and got fastest laps, he would have finished 1 point behind or whatever it was, or 2 points behind, whatever it would have been.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, like mathematically, there's no way he could lose it. So it's not like he gets the trophy there and then, because they do a big ceremony, which I think they did this week, where they give out the actual trophy and like actually crown the champion and everything. But yeah, he went up and like was interviewed as the 4-time world champion.
Okay. Question. So I understand the Constructors' Championship was still ongoing until the last race, which is nice. Have there been seasons, or are there often seasons where both are decided like well before the end of the season?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Last year, Max was champion like really early on. I think there was like 4 or 5 races to go, something like that. Lewis has had championships where he's won with like 6 races to go. Like there's been domination from drivers. Sebastian Vettel, I imagine, I can't really remember. I know he had a couple of close ones with Fernando, but I imagine maybe his second one was like fairly cruisy for him, or maybe his third or something. But yeah.
But seasons where driver and constructors have dominated as well. Like say if there's like 4 races left in the season.
Yeah.
And the driver and the Constructors' Championship are both already decided.
Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah. What do you do?
Genuinely, the end of this season was a prime example. Even though we had a Constructors' Championship going down to the wire, Alpine, RB and Haas could have all gained or lost positions for 5th place or something, or 6th place in the championship. So them 3 were still racing for it. Okay. And so you can't just say, oh, well, everyone else sit out. We'll just let these 3 race. So everyone, you have to see the season through.
Yeah. Okay.
And
No.
Same in like the EPA. EPA? What do you call it?
Football?
EPL.
Yeah.
I just call it the Premier League.
State of origin for rugby union. Nice. Rugby league fans.
God, we're all over the place today.
They're often decided in the second game and you still play the third. And it just feels weird.
It does feel weird. F1 feels even weirder because it costs millions of dollars to go racing and you're traveling around the world.
Yeah.
And it feels bizarre. We'll get onto that as well because Max does something in the last race, which is, he didn't need to do it, but we'll get onto it.
Cool.
So Max winning the championship brought up there's been a lot of funny facts with the end of this season. And so the first one that came up after this race was that this season is the biggest gap between the world champion and the world champion's teammate since 1994. So it's been 30 years since we've had such a big gap between world champion and the teammate. This year, Max Verstappen won, Sergio Perez finished in 8th, their teammates. In 1994, Michael Schumacher won in the Benetton, and his teammate was Jos Verstappen, Max's dad.
No way.
Who finished in P10.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's like roles reversed.
Yeah. I mean, not for yours, but
no,
cool.
Or Sergio, because Schumacher's not his dad.
Yeah. Oh well, cool piece of trivia.
Very cool piece of trivia. 30 years as well to the year, which is great. That's what 30 years means. Goes disc. Qatar Grand Prix. Right, strap in, Lewis fans. Let's fucking do it. I will also defend Lewis to begin with. And I'll read you a quote from Toto because I think this was one of the biggest shit shows in FIA stewarding that I've ever seen, ever. For multiple reasons. There's obviously been all the drama with the FIA stewards at the moment, like race directors being sacked and new ones being hired. And I think this was a new race director again for his first ever time race directing an F1 race. So like a lot of stuff went wrong. For the start, Lewis jumps the start. So you can kind of see it from the wide shot. He like releases his clutch, jolts forward and then goes again. I remember we had that whole thing with Daniel Ricciardo like earlier in the season. We spoke about what a jump start hit is and like if you cross the yellow line.
Yeah. Wasn't there one with Lando Norris as well?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, Lando Norris one. Yeah, but I think this one was quite marginal. I don't like it. It would have come down to like millimeters of whether he crossed that yellow line or not, and they obviously would have had the data to say, yep, he definitely did it. But from the camera shots I could see, it was very tight. He was handed a 5-second penalty, okay? Which is like, okay, it's fair enough. You've jumped the start, 5-second penalty. Let's just fast forward a little bit. Lando Norris, there was debris on the track. We'll talk about that in a minute. Lando Norris didn't lift off the throttle on the straight. It was him and Verstappen. Verstappen radioed to say he didn't lift off the throttle, reporting to the stewards. They reported it. He didn't, because under a yellow flag, you're supposed to like lift off and be prepared to stop the car.
Okay.
He didn't do that. And so he got handed a 10-second penalty, except this was a 10-second stop and go penalty. So stop and go means you drive into the pits, stop for 10 seconds, and then go. They're not allowed to work on the car. They're not allowed to change the tires. So effectively, on this track, when it's like a 22-second pit stop to drive in, stop and go, you've got to add 10 seconds onto that. This is a 32-second penalty, basically.
What?
So Lewis's jump start, which is just as dangerous as not slowing under a yellow flag, got 5 seconds. Lando got 30 seconds or 32, basically. Hamilton...
Question, sorry.
Yep.
Why would they make it a stop and go penalty? Why would you ever use that and not just a normal penalty?
Stop and go penalties are supposed to be for very, very bad and dangerous things. It's bad and it could have been dangerous if there were stewards on the track or whatever else, or a car stopped on, like there was a physical car with a driver in it there. It was a bit of debris. I think it was a massive overreaction from the FIA. I think it was ridiculous. Hamilton while they're cleaning up the debris behind the safety car, Hamilton goes through, they all have to go through the pits behind the safety car. Hamilton forgets to press his pit lane speed limiter, gets given a drive-through penalty after the safety car. So that's just like stopping. You've just got to drive straight down the pits. You've got to go in, put your pit lane speed limiter on and drive through. You're not allowed to stop. So that's a 22-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Wait, what? Okay.
Yeah.
And so he didn't get it's not called like a 5-second penalty or something.
Nope.
It's a drive-through penalty. You just have to drive through
the pits. You're not allowed to have your car worked on.
What the hell?
Yeah.
What's wrong with just 5 and 10-second penalties?
Yeah.
Why are they
these two, the stop and go and a drive-through are supposed to be for harsh. It's supposed to be a very harsh penalty. And like they exist because if you've done something very bad before you're going to be disqualified from the race, you'll get something like this.
Okay.
But like, I see Lewis speeding in the pit lane where there are fucking hundreds of mechanics and engineers and cameramen and stewards and, marshals and things like that. There are hundreds of people walking on their feet. Drive-through penalty. Lando Norris didn't lift on a straight where no one was, and there was a mirror on the floor. 10 second stop go. 30-second penalty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where's the consistency?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Not to mention, people have sped through the pit lanes this season and gotten just normal
5 or 10 second penalties. Yeah. It's really, I don't get it. Like, I really don't understand. Toto was in agreement. He said after the race, I think the penalties were brutal, particularly to McLaren. It could have cost them the championship today. I don't know what the infringement exactly was. And what's most important is that there is just consistency. If the race director comes in and he has a hard stance, that's okay, as long as everyone knows that, and everyone knows that's the stance, and you need to comply with it. So I think basically what he's saying is like, let's have a bit of consistency. If it's going to be a stop and go penalty, let's enforce that from the beginning. Let's not have different ones throughout the season and this for that and this for this, and they're always different penalties.
Yep. Okay. So that seems quite reasonable from Toto.
Yeah.
Mercedes.
Yeah. One of the most reasonable. Honestly, like I'm going to slate Lewis fairly soon.
Okay.
But like,
that's where
I think all of this was just ridiculous for Mercedes and Lewis. I think it led to Lewis's frustration, which I'll be making fun of him for. But like it is just ridiculous. Like I think anyone in the car would be pissed off with these penalties being handed out to them.
Okay.
Not to mention Lewis also got a puncture for the debris being on track. So like, it was just like salt in the wound and then getting drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. Like I'm not saying he shouldn't have got a penalty. I'm not saying Norris shouldn't have. They definitely should have. I just don't think it should have been as harsh.
Okay, with you.
Or Lando's shouldn't have been harsher than Lewis's. I think Lewis's was probably a bit worse than Lando's, but anyway.
Okay.
Fucking ridiculous.
No worries.
Williams and Bottas started all this drama. Williams wing mirror flew off the car. Don't know if it was damaged from the Alex Albon Lance Stroll contact earlier in the race, but the wing mirror flew off. We've seen this a few times happen. They're very thin bits of carbon that hold the wing mirrors on, and so under the down forces that they feel, we've had things like this blow off. And then Bottas, a few laps later, decided to crash into the mirror. It looked like he did it on purpose because the race was boring as shit and he just wanted to spice it up a little bit. That led to Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz both getting punctures, which then led to the safety car coming out 5 laps later or something, 4 laps later.
Yeah. Yeah. So why did it take so long to clean up the mirror that came off and is on the track? Like, surely if a mirror comes off and lands on the track, surely you would like that off the track sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
It came off in the 30th lap, and I think it was the 34th lap.
Something like that,
Hamilton and Sainz drove over it.
Yeah, I got the punctures.
It just looked like everyone was like, wow, this is wonderful. It's going to make the race so much more entertaining. They've got all this debris to drive across and puncture their cars.
Yeah.
It was
It was ridiculous.
Why did no one clean it up?
Honestly, even the commentators were like, yeah, that's if anyone wants to overtake down the main straight, which is also the only place to overtake on this track, they're going to hit that. The first time that it was Bottas as a back marker, but the first time someone did that, they hit it, and then it led to all this. And it was just like, okay, they couldn't drop a virtual safety car because there was not enough of a gap for that to happen and a marshal to run out and grab it, but just drop a full safety car. Bunch all the pack up, tell everyone to drive to the left of the obstruction, send a marshal out when there's a big gap on track and fucking pick the thing up. Like, it's not difficult. I don't understand. Again, something the race director fucking did wrong. Okay. Or the stewards or whoever is in charge of that one. But it certainly spiced it up, and it certainly led to a lot more drama than the race was providing, because it was dog shit before that. You also wrote down Sauber got points.
Yes.
Well done to Sauber.
Yes. Their first and only points of the season.
Yeah. Well done, Guan Yu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Whopping 4 points.
Yeah. More than Williams got in that race, I think.
Yeah. But less than Williams got for the season.
Yeah. Obviously, we're gurus.
No, that was exciting.
It was very exciting.
Last and dead last the whole time. Then they just sneak on into the points.
I think it was like 4 races to go. Carlos said in an interview, I think someone said to him, I don't remember how it came about, but he was like, oh, if Joe gets a point this season, I will wear a chili costume after the race. And then after the race, Joe went to the Ferrari garage with a big chili costume and he just wore it for some interviews and bits like that. It was funny as.
That's great.
Okay, so now let me complain about Lewis complaining. Because, 2 wrongs make a right.
Cool.
So on lap 19, we were provided with this amazing radio message by Lewis. And believe me when I say that, I was pissing myself laughing when I heard it.
How slow we compare to the others?
So front runners are mid-25s.
Mid-25s. The second.
He says mid-25s. That's a second. It was actually a second and a half. He wasn't looking at his last lap time correctly. He sounds defeated. He sounds like, oh my God, how are we this far off the pace? Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Lewis, George, your teammate, was in like P4 and was lapping pretty well. I think you're the problem, Lewis. On lap 24, we were provided with this beauty.
How far are we off the front runner?
So 1.2 to the front.
Is the car broken or just...
We're just underbalanced by the look of it, Lewis, just underbalanced.
And that's Bono saying, we're underbalanced. And what he means by that is, you're fucking slow. Deal with it, Lewis. You're slow.
That's not what underbalanced means, is
No,
it?
oh, no. Yeah, no. It's under... Like, in all fairness, it can mean that they've not got the setup right. The problem is they got it so right on George's.
Okay.
And Mercedes are not known to make these issues. Like, they don't make mistakes, Mercedes. They do, but they don't make big mistakes like this where one car is this dramatically different.
Okay.
So, no, I would just say, Lewis, you weren't on it today. There were big rumors as well after this race that Lewis was quitting. He was like so off of Mercedes. He didn't. He came back for last race. On lap 36, we got this.
Just me to have this luck.
Trust me to have this look, he says. That was after receiving the puncture, I think it was. It was either the puncture or the penalty. It was it was the puncture. Trust me to have this look as he was coming into the pits on 3 wheels. And this one was more that he just sounds beaten. He just sounds like he wants to cry at this point.
How do you find humor in a man sounding beaten?
Because it's Lewis Hamilton, and I don't like Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
And also, so many people, when Lewis was like dominating, had the best car, so many people used to say, "Oh, Lewis is so humble. He never gives up. He's always like, it was always the still we rise. Like, we never give up. We're Team LH. Like, da da da." And it's like, no, guys. Can we just remember when McLaren were dog shit and he used to do this on a daily basis?
Okay.
Like, people forget that Lewis used to be shit or had a shit car in Mercedes and complained a lot. And now he's got a bad car now, or he's just a bad one. He's complaining again. Anyway, lap 48, this is the funniest one and I love it so much. Like, this is going to be my ringtone from now.
Okay, looks like we've got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So it looks like I forgot to press the button on that first time behind the safety car.
Retire the car. Park the car, mate.
Negative.
He says, yeah, retire the car. Just retire the car, mate. Also, Lewis, you forgot to press the button. It's like, oh, mate, Lewis, dementia's kicking in.
Oh,
like,
Dave.
You've entered the pits for 1,000,001 times and dementia's, mate, we'll get the Zimmer frame, we'll get you out the car and we'll send you straight to the care home, pal.
Okay.
Oh, I just love it so much, Skin. The decline of Lewis Hamilton.
Okay. All right.
He did do an interview as well after, I can't remember if it was this one or if it was the previous race, the Vegas race. He did an interview just saying, it was something about like, I just didn't have it, or I just don't have it anymore. I'm not fast anymore. And I was like, holy fuck, why? Like, Ferrari must be shitting their pants because he's like saying that he's not quick anymore. I don't know if it's just a classic Lewis where he's going to say all this shit and lead us to believe he's gone, and then he's going to first race of the season and win by 10 minutes. Like, if he does that, honestly, I'll eat my hat. Like, this hat I'm wearing now, I'll eat it.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. I'm going to set myself a reminder.
Okay, if he wins if he wins the first race of next season.
Deal.
Okay, final race of the season was at Abu Dhabi, as per usual. We've been finishing the seasons there for quite a while now. Pretty good track.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. It looks great.
Yeah.
There was hectic fireworks at the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've got good fireworks.
That,
yeah.
which
One
is
of the
probably
best.
not like what you're really watching the F1 for, but
No.
it was noticeable.
But well, I think for a season finale, especially when you have a title like a title battle at the end, I think it's just what you want. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. When there's no title battle and it's all finished, there's been a couple of seasons where like the last race has meant nothing for anyone, and the fireworks go off and you're just like, yeah, well, I just turned the telly off now. Yeah. Whereas this one, it was like, oh yeah, we've got a winner. Yeah, it's a great track. They've modified it on a couple of corners to just either open them up or tighten them or make braking zones a bit like deeper so that more overtaking can happen. And I think this year's was testament to that. I think we had a fair amount of overtaking, aided by the fact that Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc both qualified out of position. Charles had a 10-place grid penalty, qualified in 11th, started in 19th because Williams had penalties and they started behind them. So it was a whole thing. And then Lewis qualified 17th or 18th or something with penalties. I think he started 17th or 6th. I can't remember. But they both qualified out of position, which meant we were going to have them charging through the field. Gasly had a fucking great qualifying again, I think starting in 5th or 6th or something. Like, he was up there again. Yeah. And again, held his own against the rest of the front runners for a while. Like, George struggled to get past him for so long.
Yes. I think, and he finished the race this time.
His engine didn't blow up this time, yeah.
And he finished in P5. He was quite good for the last like 2 races. I think he might win the championship next year.
Sure. Yes, I think Gasly has the potential to win the championship. Whether or not the Alpine car has the potential to win the championship next year. I won't say ever, but next year.
Okay. Right.
I don't think they do. Mainly because the engine freeze and the engine that's in that car isn't that great.
Okay.
Because it blew up a few weeks before as well.
Very fair.
So yeah, that made going into the race interesting. We also had McLaren 1 and 2 and Ferrari 3 and 4 for the start of the race, which was just going to be fantastic. And then at the very start of the race, Max had one of the best starts of the season, I would say. Like, off the line, he really good start until he hit Oscar at turn 1.
Yes.
What did you think to that?
Well, Max got a 10-second penalty for it, didn't he?
Yep.
I thought that seemed, but that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
He tried to overtake someone, which seems like the whole point of racing.
Yeah.
And it was really weird. So like everyone sort of went to that, like whatever it was, the right hand side of the track.
Yeah. As you're looking down the track to the right hand side. Yeah.
Yeah. So they all sort of went over to the right. Like Oscar went over to the right, and then he just hopped on the inside of Oscar as they went round the first corner. And he was already on Oscar's inside, and then Oscar just cut across to hit the apex.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, there's a car there. So,
yeah. So the race directors...
It just looked to me like Oscar drove straight into him, and then Max got a 10-second penalty. It was really weird.
Well, that's what I thought as well from the offboard. The race directors gave Max a penalty because they said that under braking, he then came off the brakes to then make the lunge, and it was too late of a move because Oscar was already committed to turning into the apex. So it's like, all right, yeah, fine. But there's also something in the rules that says that they will be more lenient on first lap incidents. And I just see it as a first lap incident. There was a gap there. He fucking went for it and he ended up clipping him by mistake. I don't think it was that harsh enough to be a 10-second penalty. I think it was ridiculous.
Okay.
The commentators on Sky Sports said, he isn't in the championship battle. Why did he do that? Could not agree any fucking less. Well, Martin and Crofty just annoy me a lot of the time, but that is just fucking ridiculous. Even though he's not in a championship battle, why does that mean he should race them any less than he does every week? Yeah. Why does that mean they should get preferential treatment over other drivers? I don't get it. It makes no odds. It makes no odds to put in a dive. Max would have done that every day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Yeah, if that made sense, then he could have just stayed at home and had a day off, sort of thing.
Yeah. If we only cared about the championship fight, it should have only been the 4 cars on the grid that were in the championship fight. It should have just been them 4.
Yeah. Like if you rock up at the race, you might as well race.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't understand it. I liked it. I like aggressive driving, and I thought it was a good move. It's a shame that it came off like that, and I think Oscar was pretty pissed off obviously. But yeah, shit happens in racing. Get over it. They still won the championship. obviously Lando would have seen that happen. He would have heard from the team what had happened, but he kept his cool. He really had a good race. He just head down, put the good laps in, and just stayed in front. Like, even over team radio throughout the race, there was a couple of team radio messages like talking about strategy or talking about when to pit, or there was one towards the end where they said to him, if there is a safety car now and we box you and Carlos stays out, do you think you, or both Ferraris pass you, or even just one of them, do you think you could re-overtake them? And he was like, yeah, I think I've got the pace today. And he was like that casual. He was just so nonchalant about it. And I was like, fucking, this guy he's just got it in the bag today. Like, he's just focused.
Okay.
And it was amazing to see.
Yeah, right.
Leclerc also had a great race. Like I've said, started P19, finished in P3. He got driver of the day. One of the best drives of the season, I would say, for any driver. Just some of the moves he made on lap one, while other people were squabbling and doing whatever, was just really calm, really collected, and just, yeah, one of his best drives ever in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And he said in the past few months now that I think he's starting to like try and mentally toughen up for Lewis coming, because Lewis will, if they were in a championship fight, Lewis is going to fuck you. Like, Lewis has got the mental game on his side, and I don't think Charles has that. And so in the past few months, he's been saying a lot of like, I need to do better. I'm not holding myself as accountable, or I'm not putting enough pressure on myself to perform under, like, in these situations, and to do good when I've made a mistake or when a mistake has happened to me. Like, his penalty he got was because they changed the gearbox, or no, it was the battery that I said earlier in the app. They changed the battery, so it was a 10-place grid drop for going over your allocation. So, like, out of his control, but it meant no matter what, he was going to be starting low down. He had all the work to do, and he fucking did it. So it was really good to see.
Beautiful.
Like we said, McLaren won the World Constructors Championship. You decided to support McLaren at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think that was the secret for them.
Yeah.
Just one extra fan.
Yeah. Do you also remember early season contemplating Aston Martin?
I do. I do.
Are you happy you didn't do that?
Stoked.
Yeah. Because Fernando has said it. He said in these past 3 races, it is the worst car he's ever driven.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it looked okay for the first couple of races.
Looked very good. Yeah. In pre-season testing, they were looking all right. Like, I don't know what happened, just no development. But then Adrian Newey go in there for next year. Like,
yeah,
26 Aston will be a different beast.
That's true. Could be exciting. It did also mean that choosing to support McLaren this season rather than Aston Martin meant I didn't have to pretend to think Stroll was really good. Which was nice.
Yeah. Which is something team principal Mike Crack is still doing. I saw a quote from him literally this morning saying that when you look at both drivers, they are Stroll is not far off of Alonso. They are very close. And I was like, no, they're fucking not.
Okay.
Fernando finishes races and has 2 world championships. Lance Stroll, his dad bought the team to put him in the car.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was nice being able to like sit back and laugh when he drove straight into walls rather than being like, oh no, my team had a terrible race.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Quite happy with my decision.
Yeah. Did you see the latest post we put on the Fools about him driving in the gravel trap?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I put the video in it of it, and all the crowd are just like, as soon as it happens, just start laughing. Like, all the Brazilian fans are just like laughing their heads off. It's the funniest shit. Talking of funny shit, when Lewis Hamilton leaves teams, weird stuff happens.
All right.
So he's only ever driven for 2 teams in Formula 1, McLaren, then Mercedes. And when he left McLaren, everyone said, worst decision ever, don't go to Mercedes, blah, blah. Then he won another 6 world championships with them. So he proved them wrong.
Yes.
Just like he's probably going to prove me wrong when he goes to Ferrari, and I'm going to cry in about a year's time.
Wonderful. I can't wait.
So when he left McLaren the first time, in his final race for McLaren, there was a Red Bull who was world champion span out of the race on lap 1. This time around, Red Bull driver who was world champion span out of the race on lap 1.
Mm-hmm.
And like, not out the race, but like span in the race.
Yep.
Perez retired both times. No surprise.
That is weird.
That's a weird one.
How old was Perez back then?
I don't know how old he is now, to be honest. He was young though.
Yeah.
He was young, and in Sauber. So like kicks, like the kick team.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and like they were good, but just like a lower down team. A British McLaren driver won the race both times. So Button won it in whatever year it was, 2014 or whatever. And then Lando Norris won it this time around. A Spanish Ferrari driver came second place So obviously Carlos Sainz, and we had Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second Ferrari driver came in third place in both races. Charles Leclerc this year and Felipe Massa back in the day.
Amazing.
How does this shit happen? Like the other one that we mentioned earlier with the difference between like Verstappen and Checo and then Schumacher and Verstappen.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just a coincidence that was 30 years ago. But then all of these things to happen in Lewis's last race for Mercedes that also happened in Lewis's last race for McLaren. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Come on, Skin.
Yeah, sure. It's pretty weird. I don't have an answer for you. I guess like, lots of stuff happens, Dave.
But that's all weird.
There's 8 billion people on the planet, you know? Like things with a slim chance of happening happen all the fucking time.
Like us putting a podcast out on time.
Yeah.
Also, Oscar has joined, after this race, he's joined a very small group of people in F1 drivers. He completed every single lap of the 2024 season.
Mm-hmm.
The only driver to do it this year, obviously. He's the fourth driver in history to do it. The first one was Schumacher in 2002, Lewis in 2019, and Max Verstappen in 2023. So it's becoming more common because since 2019, we've had 3 drivers do it, but in all of the rest of the history, we had 1.
Yeah, I was going to say and the first one was 2002.
Yeah.
F1's been going for donkey's years, hasn't it?
70 years or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a lot of people before 2002.
Well, yeah, like just mechanically though, you've got to think like from when it first started through to the 90s, we didn't have electrical components and sensors that could tell you when your engine was going to blow up or things like that. Cars are just getting more reliable, just like they are on cars that we drive. Everything's getting more reliable with technology. And so it doesn't surprise me. I think we'll see this a lot more over the next 5-10 years, but it's just nice to see that Oscar is the 4th driver in the history to do it.
That's why I've been a big fan of him for years.
Yeah. You've got his helmet. So that's,
1 year.
Like you've got more Oscar merch than I've got.
Yeah.
Look at you go.
Look at me go.
And then Checo, another fun fact for Checo and another stupid little stat that I think you'll like. So Perez finished the season 277 points behind Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Meaning that the points difference between him and Verstappen is greater than the combined points difference between every other teammate pairing. So if you take the Ferrari drivers difference, Mercedes drivers difference, like all the other teams on the grid driver differences, add them together, that adds up to 254 points difference.
Okay.
And Checo is 277 away from Max.
Not the best.
No.
Not the best. Do you have an explanation for that isn't as simple as Checo sucks or something negative about Checo? Like why would that happen? Because most of the time, I'm assuming, I haven't watched many seasons of F1, but I assume, like looking at this season, and I presume most of the time the 2 cars in a team will finish near each other in terms
relatively
of points
close,
on the ladder and stuff.
Yeah.
What has gone on there?
It's just the decline of Checo and his performances is just unreal. That's the only thing I can say. Is like 2021, he had a very good season. 22, it was like, 23, it was questionable whether he'd come into this year. And now it's like, if he still has a drive by Christmas, it would be surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Like Checo I think he's just past it. I think that's literally it. He's past his prime. I think it's as simple as that. And it's such a shame because he's a phenomenal driver and he's a phenomenal person. But I think he's had his day in the sun and he just can't, whether he can't get along with this car or his natural talent is fading away. I don't know what it is, but I can't see him driving an F1 car ever again.
Okay. So you can't see anything that happened in the team or the car that he was driving that made it worse than Max's or anything. It was strictly
like Max had a decline over the season and it's shocking that he still won the Drivers' Championship. But I mean, it's not because he fucking dominated for the first part, but like the decline of Max over the season was fairly big, but he was still podiuming or like top 5, top 6s all the time. Whereas Checo had a lot of races where he struggled to get points or like he was struggling to qualify in the top 10. And it's just, I think that's the difference. Like he's still in his prime and Checo, I think he's just at the end of his career. And so like when you compare someone in their prime and then against someone at the end of the career, it's disheartening to see this. There have been rumors that Fernando could take his seat next year at Red Bull. If it happened, it would be very interesting because I rate Fernando as one of the best drivers ever. I think he's a phenomenal racing driver. And when you see him against people like Lance Stroll, it's hard to compare has Fernando still got it, or is Fernando now a midfield driver that's just like he's still good, but he's not going to compete against Max? It would be really nice to see him race against, at one of these young guns that is actually good, instead against Stroll. But yeah, for Checo, I think if Checo was in a Williams or a Sauber or an Aston Martin, I think he'd perform better than what he's in Red Bull. I think he'd do better because it would be less pressure.
Yeah.
I think he would be able to relax into the comfortability. Like Bottas said, his first season of being with Sauber, which he's recently said it was the worst decision he made going to Sauber, but he said it was the best decision he made going on a 2 or 3 year contract with them, because Mercedes, he was always season to season. It was a 1 year contract each year. And so he said like his first season in Sauber, he felt like he was doing some of his best racing. And it was because he didn't have to worry about performing to get a seat next year. He had a seat. And so he just could take the pressure off and not have to perform to get a contract. And I think that could play into Checo's mind as well. But it's just, end of his career, I reckon. Winners and losers we'll quickly wrap this up. Winners and losers. I had losers, Checo, Red Bull, I think are the biggest loser this season. The decline of their car, the lack of their development over the season, and the fact that Adrian Newey's leaving, a bunch of other back of house people are leaving. Can't remember the guy's name. Jonathan Wheatley is going to Sauber to be their team principal for when they become Audi. So he's had his last race with Red Bull. I think could it be the beginning of the end for Red Bull? Like, could they be on a big decline and maybe next season could be Max's last season? Like who knows what is going to happen? But I think biggest losers of the season, definitely Red Bull. Williams have been huge losers this season. We've lost a lot of fucking money and damaged a lot of cars and a lot of people's confidence. But with what we've got coming next year, they also made my winners list. Because we have Carlos coming. We have a lot on the reverse of Red Bull. We've got a lot of back of house people coming. We've hired a lot of staff members from Mercedes, Red Bull, Aston Martin, Ferrari that are all coming to the team next year to prepare for the 26 car. So I think what James has done over the season is great, but we've spent way too much money to get to this point. Like we've crashed the car too much.
Okay.
And I also think Carlos is a big loser of this season because he's lost his Ferrari seat and he's going to Williams. Like next year, he's not going to get podiums next year. He's not going to perform in the top 6 next year. For 26, who knows, new regs. Like I've said, Williams are on the up with all of that. So he could maybe return to a podium in 26, but not a good turn for Carlos's career this season. And then winners, obviously McLaren, Lando, Oscar. Lando and Oscar both got their first race wins this year. They got multiple race wins this year. McLaren won their first ever Constructors' Championship since 1998. So it's been like almost 30 years, like 26 years, whatever it is, since their last Constructors' Championship, which is unbelievable to say that they're the second most successful team in the sport's history.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. That it had been so long for them. I assumed they'd been doing some winning. McLaren's quite a good,
very good
company.
Yeah. And like Lewis won the championship in 08, almost won it came second in 07. And there's Spygate and everything else there that meant that they got points deducted and whatever else. But yeah, like there were times when they were still at the top through the 2000s and kind of into the teens is when they started fading. But the redemption from them this season has just been unreal. Like they've developed their car so well, and they should be so proud of what they've done. Because I think if you went to anyone's predictions or even our first episode, I don't think, or when you decided to become a McLaren fan, I don't think even the championship was on the cards at that point. I don't think we would think, I think it was Red Bull going to win this.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, the turnaround has been unreal.
Yeah. No, it's been an exciting season for that reason. I didn't really know what to expect coming in. It was like the first time I paid any attention to F1, and I just assumed Red Bull was just going to cruise along and flog everyone all year. Yeah. It ended up being a nice competition.
Yeah. It's probably been one of the best seasons for 20 odd years, I would say. It's been exciting. Multiple race winners that have won more than one race. We had a constructors fight to the end, which we haven't had in a while now. And yeah, just a lot of really good racing action this season. And I think it's been fantastic. I want to finish off with a tweet though, just to congratulate Max Verstappen. I know he's a massive fan of the Fools podcast, mainly because we just don't like Lewis. And by we, I mean me. Yep. For legal reasons, I have to mention that Skin is no way affiliated to my hate for Lewis Hamilton, and neither is anyone else associated with the Formula Fools. It's just me.
Correct.
That's a funny little bit, isn't it? Anyway, so Max and Kelly Piquet have announced that they are pregnant with their first child. Kelly has a child with someone else, and Max described being a stepdad as, or he didn't say stepdad, he said, I can't remember what he said, but he said something really cute, and he said it's been the best thing ever, and now that they are expecting their first child, he's very excited for it.
Yeah, sick.
So Formula One, it's a meme page on Twitter. They put this fake news article out saying Christian Horner and Helmut Marko jealous of Kelly's ability to lock Max down on a huge 18-year contract. Because Max is obviously, there's talks he could go to Mercedes and things like that for 26. So
right.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Very clever. I like that kind of gear.
Okay. Has Max only been on 1-year contracts, or is he? I
think he's on a 3-year. I think next year is his last on a 3-year contract.
Okay.
And then, 4-time world champion. He could pretty much do what he wants with his contract choices with Red Bull. He could do a 1-year, a 2-year, whatever. I think his smart thing would be to do a 1-year at Red Bull for 26, unless their decline next year is huge and Aston Martin's growth is huge. And then either jump ship to Mercedes, replace George, or jump ship to Aston, stick with Adrian Newey, go with the back of house team that Adrian's going to build kind of thing. So we'll see.
All right.
Well, that wraps up another lap of the Formula Fools podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the ride as much as we did, and it is now your turn to join the Fools family by connecting with us on social media. That is Formula_Fools on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Formula Fools on Facebook. Honestly, we don't use Twitter and Facebook, so I don't know why it's still in the doco and I read it. But if you want to follow us there, you can.
Yeah, one day we'll use them.
One day.
Might as well get in early.
Yeah. This time next year, we're going to have 50,000 followers just on our Facebook.
That sounds true.
Yes. Yeah. You can also drop a rating and review, Skin.
You can do that. Ratings on Spotify, reviews on Apple, ratings and reviews on Apple. Both of them would help a great deal. So please do that.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us at Formula Fools, where every turn is a chance for a good laugh. We'll see you next time.